cloud. There we go. Anyways, we'll just get started. Welcome everyone to Winnipeg Researchers and Experiencers Group on Meetup. Today is the 10th day of December 2024. We've got Mieke and Paul with us tonight. We look forward to getting into that discussion, but a quick sidetrack here to Desta Barnaby, who is going to be our guest tonight, and she had broke her leg actually the night of the meeting last month, and she's still not up to it, but she's going to be our guest next month, so that's all good. And it's our great fortune that we welcome Mieke and Paul to our show tonight. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
We've got a group that has been, like I say, a very diverse group of people, like I've said before, that have experiences from kindergarten to university professors. Kindergarten meaning, I'm interested in UFOs and that type of thing, to people who have flown craft, and we'll get into some of that tonight, I understand, with you two. And this genre is by far the most interesting one I've ever come across. I can't think of anything more interesting than what many of us have experienced and continue to, even to this day, to have experiences in. So maybe if you can just sort of start by just telling us a little bit about yourselves to start with, and we'll go from there.
You want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Okay, I'm Paul Benton, and let's see. I've had several experiences, but a little bit more about me. I was born in Oregon, as I alluded to, and with Ron, and was a rancher there. We had orchards, apples, pears, cherries. So that was what I got brought up with. Then I went to school, to college, and then became a dentist and practiced dentistry for a short time. And in the practice of dentistry, that's when I had another experience that was very amazing. We'll go into that later. And let's see what else. So I had been married twice and divorced before Mieke and I met. And we met at an alternative healing retreat in Oregon with 30 Belgians and 30 Americans. And things happened there that led us to decide that we wanted to be together, and we did. So that's a little bit about me. Mieke, you want to...
And the interesting thing was that we were both not looking for a relationship, each for our own reasons. That was not our intent, but miracles started happening one after the other, that we had to pay attention. And so yeah, that's another story in itself. But I'm born in Belgium in 1970 in the city of Ghent. And I do recall abduction experiences since about age 2.5. That's the flashes of memory I have. Those abductions happened during my childhood, teenage years, and I can get more into that later. So then I moved to Oregon to marry Paul, and Paul had 3 small kids, so we raised the kids together. And it was after we got married that we both realized we had both ET experiences. That did not come up before we got married. Something happened when we were in Hood River. I saw this red flames ball flying through the sky. And that prompted us to start talking about ETs. And then we started sharing our personal experiences, and we went from there.
Well, obviously the universe led you to each other, and now the universe has now led us to you. So we're thrilled to have you tonight, and we look forward to our discussion. So Paul, if we could start just with, you've had the first encounter, which you said was in the mountains. Why don't you just describe your first encounter and when that was?
Okay, that was in about 1967, 68 timeframe, 67, 60. I didn't write it down anyway. So, but a friend of mine and I were out in the mountains in Oregon, up by Mount Hood, for those who know where Mount Hood is. And we were just laying back, just watching, and it was dark. And we're looking out across this ridge that was in front of us, and we noticed this light come across this ridge, and it was coming across slowly. And we said, well, that's kind of a strange place for an airplane, but we're not too far from Portland, so that was okay. And it came across our field of vision and then got to a point, and then it just went 90-degree turn and disappeared in a flash. And we're looking at each other going, what was, and it says, we both knew that something was completely normal, and we was talking about, we don't have anything like that. And this is, of course, the late 60s. We don't have anything like that we make. And so that was my first introduction to, for sure, that we're dealing with probably other civilizations that had the technology to be able to do that. So that was my introduction, really woke me up.
Well, that would be quite a wake-up call, I'm sure. And many of us in this group have had that similar thing. And it'll be interesting when we get into questions later, some of the similarities that we'll see. And Mieke, your first experience in what you have experienced?
So I'm living in Belgium. I was born in 1970, and in around age 2.5, I remember memories where I have been taken into a craft. I am laying down on one of those metal tables, completely cold. I was freezing, completely naked. And I can only share from I was looking up, so I can only share what I saw through what I saw laying down. And there were 3 beings, 2 main ones. I call them now like praymantis. I mean, that's what I call now after researching the closest. They were insects, so they moved. They had those very choppy movements. They had claws. They had triangle faces. And 2 of them were like doctors, like surgeons. And I was completely paralyzed. Now I realize, probably from my own terror I was experiencing, but also now I realize they probably had technology to paralyze you so you wouldn't interfere in whatever they're doing. So those 2 combinations, I was completely out of control. So it completely terrorized me.
Totally
So
different.
they were up above me. So I saw their heads and their upper bodies only. I heard below the table smaller beings shuffling around. So I knew there were other beings that I didn't see. I could only see above me. And with their claws, they were poking in my abdomen place. They were just in there doing stuff. So that's the memory I have being in that experience. And then the next thing that I remember is I am back completely in my bed. I do remember the recall where I'm just coming from. And as a 2.5-year-old, I had to come up with a strategy, what I'm going to do. And I came up had 3 different strategies over the years. One was running to my parents' room that was on the other side of the hallway. It was completely dark. I could also feel other beings and ghosts, and it was, there was so much negative stuff hanging there that I had to brave myself to go through that wall, to crawl into my parents' hallway in my parents' bed. Another time, I decided to scream loud in the hope my parents would come to me, which happened sometimes too. And in a third scenario, I decided to think so loud in my own head, pull the covers over me in the hope that I'm going to fall asleep again. But the fear was there that they would take me up again immediately, what happens sometimes too. So that was the experience. Now, the trauma that came, that for me personally was even more traumatic than the experience itself, is that when my parents came to me, they thought it was just a dream and a nightmare, and they tried to say, okay, it's over now. But, I knew I could go back immediately back. So that was a trauma. I lived with that one until I was in my 30s. That inner child of me that was never recognized for having that experience. There was nobody validating that. So you don't know, or you're nuts. I mean, you don't know where those memories and those experiences, where to place them in your daily reality. In my 30s, I got recognized. Somebody said, no, that really happened. And then the healing and the unraveling started happening.
So you start talking about healing, the group that you guys, where you met in Oregon, did it have anything to do with healing from that experience, or was this something else on the healing side?
It was just in general healing. I had been in the healing arts already. I was a dentist, and then we did several different, worked with a bunch of different people. One group that I worked with was with Frank Copeters, and the name of the group was the Practical School of Wisdom and Compassion. We studied all kinds of healing modalities, different types of experiences in that realm, psychological and whatever, to, you know, just life stuff. And so Frank was also a massage therapist
Shaman.
and a shaman. And so it's that type of a school. It's a school for shamans and healers.
Oh,
So he's the
Well-
one that put this, he and Marilyn Powers, who was his partner at that time in this school, Practical School of Wisdom and Compassion. And they brought this gathering together with 30 Belgians and 30 Americans, and meeting in Brighton Bush, Oregon, by Mount Jefferson.
Mount Hood.
No, it's Mount Jefferson.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the other map.
So anyway, so yeah, so it was that, and that's a beautiful place. Anyone gets an opportunity to visit that area. Brighton Bush Hot Springs is just an incredible healing space and old growth timber. So, well, except I think it burned here just recently.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So we were both actually doing alternative healing on our own. Paul was doing it in Portland and I was doing it in Belgium. I started a class, The Power of Sound and the Power of Color. And then it went into chakra reading and healing and
geomancy.
right, yeah, geomancy,
Geomancy,
yeah. So to be in nature and connect with nature and all that. So I was doing this on my own. Paul was doing it there. And then my teacher knows his teacher because his teacher was a Belgian and they decided to do a joint retreat. So I knew when I heard about that, I knew I had to be there. So I immediately signed up. And then I went to Oregon with 30 other Belgians. And then the synchronicities started happening, one after another.
Very interesting meeting, how that all came together, only on the opposite side of the world, you know, to come together.
The other thing is we're from two different generations. So Paul is 21 and a half years older than me. So nothing made sense. And we were not looking for a relationship. So it had to be, all the synchronicities and miracles had to be so strong that we would pay attention enough and that we would act on it.
I just gotten out of a divorce and child custody case in which I got custody of 3 kids. But I ended up having to work 3 jobs just to support myself and the kids and the household and everything. So I wasn't looking for a relationship. I'd kind of sworn off relationship. But this healing thing was part of my business and my livelihood. So I went to the conference just for that, for the retreat, for that purpose. Anyway, so neither one of us were looking for a
And
relationship.
I had like 3 long-term relationship, one after the other. And I knew I had to learn to be by myself. I was not comfortable in my own space. So I said, okay, that's it. I need to have time to be by myself. So that's how I ended up in Oregon, not looking for a relationship, but for space to be in my own, learn to be, comfortable in my own energy.
For either of you, have your experiences with craft or ETs from that perspective, or your just those incredibly interesting and probably earth-shaking type of experiences have any effect on your relationships? Because a lot of people in this group have difficulty where they can't talk to anybody about their, and this group is sort of one where you can broach whatever you like here.
Well, shoot, how do we say this? It didn't come up. The only thing that came up was that we were being guided. We actually were being thrown together again and again and again. And that story is very interesting, but we didn't know why. And we kept saying, what do you want? What do you want us to do? Because like I said, I wasn't interested in a relationship. She wasn't, but a couple of things happened in that retreat that made it pretty clear that something very important was going on.
We can share that after we answer your question.
Yeah.
So your question, Mark, is how it affects our relationship?
Yeah. So if you, I'm not talking about yours, I'm talking about your previous relationships. So you guys have come through other types of relationships, and were they affected by your ET experiences, like the people not believe it, or it could have been so psychologically damaging at that point that it would put stress on you and everything else around you. Your own realities were quasi-shattered.
Well, for myself, living in Belgium by myself with this experience, and it was not only that one, it's into my 20s that I had experiences, and one was that I can share later, that ET showed up and did some surgical, things with me. And I learned something big out of that. But I lived with that by myself. I had nobody to talk to. And if I would talk to somebody, I mean, there was nobody in my reality in Europe, in Belgium, that had any reference point. So I carried it all by myself. There was nothing, I could not share anything.
Right.
When Paul and I met and we got married, then how we started talking, we met Travis Walton. He came to the Sonoma Film Festival in 2016, I think. Yeah. And where he was presenting his documentary, I got it here, The True Story, probably everybody knows that one. But Travis was the first one that I could meet that had abduction experiences, and I wanted to meet somebody to feel them. We like feeling people, we want to feel them. How are they? How real are they? How
authentic are they?
Authentic are they in their own being? So we wanted to meet Travis to see, and how do you do that? Being in public, talking about your experiences. So we went to see Travis, and the first night they showed the Fire of the Sky movie, and then a Q&A, and then the second night they showed this documentary. And then the third day, and Steve Bassett was there, and who else? And of course, Jennifer and a few other people on the panel. And we just talked with him, and we thought, wow, if Travis can talk about it, we can do too. And that's when we started inviting friends in our living room. We showed the documentary, we shared a little bit of our experiences, kind of testing where are people, right? And since then, we just meet people. If we feel people are open and interested, we share. If they're not, we're not going to force our story on anybody. But it's interesting when we do share, people come to us, they feel safe with us, that we share our story, and then they start sharing theirs. And that to me is the biggest joy, that we can just like sit here. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody has their own experiences, and being heard, being seen for what you have lived, that to me is the most important thing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And there's a sense of healing from ourselves when we're helping others make this step, because it's obviously, it can be quite traumatic from people's experiences, and almost everyone in this group here has had something that is related to what we're talking about here, and some have had even more traumatic experiences. But also, we've also had the people that it started off that way, and then it became a positive in their life, like they became, I think, a better person, or they had certain gifts that actually became accelerated, and it's changed their lives in many, many different cases. So yeah, it's quite interesting how this thing comes full circle. So we were talking earlier about, and I had mentioned that, and we'll get into some of the other stuff we were also mentioning, but we were talking about NDEs, and that there's such a connection between NDEs. I went to a near-death experiencers in September and October, Islands, which I recommend it highly to anyone to go to. Next year it's in Chicago. But the people there were quite open to ETs and how this connection from near-death experiencers and connections to extraterrestrials. So I understand each of you have had, or I guess, Paul, you had said that you had a near-death experience. Is that correct?
I had two of them. One of them is just, I think I've had it, Mark, because my life changed much when I was 2 years old. I was supposed to die, German measles, and they didn't think I was going to live. And so I went through a period where I didn't grow for a year and a half. So it completely stunted my growth, stopped everything. And, but out of that, I ended up having some experiences. Like at one point I could see through walls and, some extraordinary type of abilities. And I didn't know they were extraordinary. I thought everyone had those, but not so. So yeah,
And
that,
Mieke,
at that time, and then the other one that I had, which was when we actually were in a head-on collision. Mieke and I were both in that, and a car came across the double yellow line and then turned back and hit us head on. It was a drunk driver, and it was a much larger vehicle. So when it hit us, I knew we were dead. It's like, okay, we're dead. Well, we weren't, but for a split second, I surrendered. Okay, I'm not making it out of this one, and so I was there, and then all of a sudden, we weren't dead, and we're looking at each other, going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And because this happened in 2012, and Mieke says, "Yeah, I'm fine." I'm thinking, I think I'm fine. We weren't. We were just a real mess, but we thought we were okay. And so we looked at each other and says, "Well, we're not dead, so we must not be done." And we both said it at the same time.
And then we say, wonder what's
I
next.
wonder what's next. And what was next was an EMT that had just got off work, was the next car in line. It was on the back road it was a main road, but it was a kind of back road in Oregon. And he stopped everybody and said, "You put out flares there, and you call it 911, and you stop traffic, you call 911, and you hold a flare out over here." So they stopped traffic and everything, and he came down to triage the situation. And he came onto my side of the car and says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm okay." Well, I wasn't. I had 2 broken legs and I was all broken up, but I thought I was okay. And then he went around to Mieka's side, and she had a collapsed lung and a broken neck. But she thought she was okay too. So,
Yeah. The thing was, the solution and the problem happened at the same time. There was no worry, there was no fear. People said, "Okay, you have a collapsed lung." And I noticed because I couldn't breathe, but I wasn't in fear. And they said, "Well, we're going to put this thing on your face. And if it happens again, we will have to put something in your ribs
there, yeah.
too." I'm like, "Sure." And I was completely surrendered. I was at peace. And then I start breathing again. So there was this problem of the collision, solution, ATM, AMT.
yeah.
Then my lung collapsed, yeah, problem, and then solution, I breathed again. And that happened for till months after. I mean, we had problems and solutions, and we surrendered. We were not in fear. The thing was, we didn't resist anything. We knew our reality changed. We just ran with it.
how did that experience change your lives?
It felt to me that we jumped another timeline because we went through so many things. We didn't resist it. Miracles happened. We were teaching so many people on the way. We learned so many things from other people. It was like an exchange with everybody we met. And then when we met our families again, it was like we are in total different realm. And all our relationships shifted because of that too. It was a fascinating journey.
Yes. I mean and Paul, you think the same, that experience, how do you feel it changed your life?
Well, for one, it took away, I didn't have any fear. So this is very interesting that you asked this part, because I had 2 broken legs, broken sternum, broken hand, all cut up, but I felt no pain. So I had no fear and felt no pain. So that's kind of different for me. I'm kind of a squeamish about pain personally. I don't like it that much. So to be in that situation and not experiencing any pain. Now, of course, they were giving us a bunch of medication, and we're probably in our own our endorphins had kicked in, so that was a big piece of the picture. But I didn't experience pain, and even when the nurses would come and say, "What kind of pain are you in?" We'd go, "Well, we'd say, oh, maybe 2." And they said, "No, it's got to be more than that," because they had to figure out how much medication to give. And we say, "I don't know, 2." And they say, "It's got to be more than that." So we go, 4? So we'd have to play the game so that they could fill their records in. But I didn't experience any pain at all in that. minor discomfort, but I wouldn't call it pain.
And another fascinating thing was we had the same blood pressure, we had the same weight, we had the same pulse. So the nurse came to Paul to, you know, do all the vials. And after a while we said, well, you don't have to check her because it's the same.
It's the same.
Right? And then like, ha, 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 funny, funny. And then check me. So we were so in tune with each other. It was just fun.
We had fun with
We
that
had
one.
fun with it, yeah.
Wow. Well, that's so what do you attribute all that to? I mean, that seems so odd. I mean, you're talking about several different things, how you guys met, how you come together, similar experiences, now even weight, size, car accident, near-death experience, all flowing together here. So
Well, maybe you share the dancing around the galaxy part.
Oh, okay. So when we were at this retreat with our 30 Belgians and 30 Americans, we had different processes that we did, and one of them was honoring the divine masculine, and then another one was honoring the divine feminine. So in honoring the divine feminine, when in honoring the divine masculine, the men all lay on the floor. So about 30 guys lay on the floor, and 30 women danced and sang and drummed for an hour
around the man
to honor the divine masculine in the form of these guys that were on the floor. Well, I was on kid duty that day, so I didn't get to experience that. But the next day we were doing honoring of the divine feminine, in which all the women lay on the floor and us guys sang and danced and drummed for an hour. When we got up from that experience, as happens in those gatherings of people, I looked across the room, and I didn't know Mieke well at all. And I look across the room, and she's about 25 feet away from me. And in her eyes, I see a galaxy and two people dancing around that galaxy. Now, this is interesting because one, it was that far away. And two, is I'd never seen anything even close to that. So it's like, that got my attention too, Mark. It's like, what is that? So I never mentioned that to her till a lot later. But it was seeing two people dancing around a galaxy, round galaxy that was spinning, and two people dancing on the edge of it. And it was like, that means something. That has significance, I put it that way.
Yeah, that is so maybe I'm going to jump into this question. I usually ask this near the end, but I'm going to ask it now. So what do you think this experience is? If these type of things are so out of the norm, what do you think this experience actually is that we're all sharing together?
Good question, first of all.
Yeah, well, I think it's meant to be. I mean, I believe we plan when we come in, we have the design for our own reality, what we're going to do. That's my belief. So somehow, and we're all connected, we're all one. So somehow Paul and I were one or are one, and decided I like to explore a lot, and I like to learn things fast, and I like to just not stick or identify with things, but just to cruise through things, right? So looking backwards, I'm like, well, let's see, we chose to be born in two different cultures. So we learned from two different cultures.
Two different ages,
male, female. So let's say we're one, and we say, how are we going to learn the most here? How can we make the best out of this life? Well, we're going to be born like that, male, female.
Two different cultures, two different ages.
And then we're going to just bring it all together and share with the world.
And see if we can survive, see if we can make it work.
Something like that.
And 21 years difference in age too, which is another unusual thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
But
that's pretty amazing.
Because he was raising his 3 kids, and that for me was not a problem. If he had 20 kids, we'd be fine too. I love children. So
share your experience about the lunch.
Yeah, that's another good one. So in that same retreat, one of those miracles. So the last day of the retreat, we gonna have Brighton Bush has a great buffet. It's all homegrown, vegetarian, vegan, all these special menu anyway. And I was starving. We just had done healing work in the morning. I was just starving to death, and I couldn't wait to enjoy my last meal in Brighton Bush before the end of that week retreat there. And I had a plate, salad, food, soup. I mean, I want it all and I want to savor it. And I just wanted to have that experience for the rest of my life, this last meal, the last supper. Anyway, so I get my plate, all these things, and I'm looking for a place to sit. And it was pretty full. The
Dining
place,
area
we
was,
had outside and inside. But inside it was pretty full. But Paul was sitting there on a big table with his 3 kids, and there is nobody else, I think, with you at the table. So he's busy feeding the kids and napkins and and I say, hey, do you mind when I, join you? Sure, go ahead. So he's feeding his kid first before he starts himself. So I'm sitting down, I'm like, wow, where I'm going to start here. So I get my fork in my broccoli and I wanted to eat it. And my body said, no. Like when you're so stuffed, you can't get one more bite in. Well, that's what I experienced. So when I was standing up, I was hungry, completely hungry. I couldn't wait to eat. I sit down with Paul and the kids. My hunger completely vanished to the point I could not eat one bite. I had to throw it all away. My mind could not understand it. So I got angry about it. I mean, internally, I didn't tell anything to Paul. Now I know what that meant. Again, me reuniting with Paul and the kids, the unity came together. So on all levels, I was fulfilled.
Wonderful.
In need of any news. Our souls together brought me the nourishment and the oneness experiences that,
wow.
but my logical mind could not understand what just happened.
What a beautiful connection. I mean, considering all the things, that is a very interesting thought.
And with the kids too, we have no drama. They go through their stuff, but between us, we only support each other. It's like this unity of 5. We decided somehow this is what we're going to do in this lifetime. And it's beautiful.
Yes. No, that is, to think that you were so looking forward to eating and then nothing, again, pretty interesting. One of the things you're talking about, some of the stuff you had sent us about some of your bio, you talked about other psychic phenomena. What types of other psychic phenomena have you been dealing with and had experience of?
Well, what comes up to share here is one that we wrote it in the book. I had an experience. I was working in Oregon in a natural food store, and I'm trying to make this brief here. And we were hiring another store director, and 3 candidates would come in, and all of the employees could get to know them and, to see which one we would like best. And then the ones that we thought would be the best for the store, everybody could put their word in. I was excited about that because I love meeting people and use my intuition. Anyway, so I meet the first one, and great guy. And I thought, like, check, that would be perfect one for in the store. Then I meet the second one. So I see him coming my way. I said, okay, because that was his task, to walk around and talk to the employees. So he comes to me. He's standing in front of me. I'm talking to him. And in about 2 seconds in our conversation, he vanishes. He's gone. So I'm feeling like a fool, right? I'm in conversation, and all of a sudden this guy is gone, and I'm just standing there by myself. I mean, as what it appears to be by myself. So after like a minute, just kind of checking if he's been, where could he been gone to? I just walked back to my department, and then I'm on alert, of course. I just tried to find him in the rest of the day. I didn't see him anymore. So I asked my colleagues, did you see him? What do you think about him? And everybody was like, only 2 people. Oh, I think he's okay. He's fine. And I'm like, fine in myself, not okay with me, just fooling me, disappearing right in front of me here. Anyway, you start questioning your own mind then. Does this happen? But I knew it happened because I do remember. So anyway, I guess who got hired? That person. Then I'm completely on alert. So several months later or something, it happened again. And that to me was proof that I wasn't crazy. It was confirmation for me that it did happen. So I was at the copy machine upstairs at the offices. I'm copying, and I feel him coming out of his office standing next to me. So I just look at him, I say hi, and bam, he's gone again. I immediately run into his office, and all the offices checking all the points
Where he could go.
where he could go to, but you know, he was gone. And for me, that was good that it happened again. So I could then be with myself without questioning myself. And then it happened again a third time. Now he was not coming towards me. He was just passing by in the aisle, and I look towards him from the side, and as he was passing, he just vanishes right in front of me. So somehow he was kind of messing with me in my mind, but I was paying attention and I wasn't questioning the reality. So that was one of the capabilities I have to really be aware of those things, you know, those
Phenomenal, yeah.
phenomena. I'm always on alert because of my abduction experiences, with this kind of towards my disadvantage, because relaxing for me is not easy. I'm working on it because I'm always on guard, because I'm always aware of what's happening around me, to the point that I wish I could be more single focused. Other, I read people easily, you know, I connect with people, I can feel their hearts, I can feel who they are, I can see if they have challenges. I easily know how to help people because I read them pretty well. What else? As a kid, I remember being scared about looking at an object too long because I would move it. Or maybe I saw people moving it. I don't recall my own abilities there, but I do remember the fear of not looking too focused to an object for moving it. And when I see people in relationships, I can easily feel how do they fit together? You know, what's their energy field? Things like that.
So, Mieke, just going back to this person that disappeared 3 times, you think ET? What you know, like a dimensional being?
I think from the personality and the energy field, I think I was dealing more. I don't have any proof. Again, you know, I can't prove it. I
No.
think I was dealing with reptilian. The energy was not good at all. His children looked white and drained, and no. And one of the things that happened too, when we were at working, he came in the middle of the afternoon when there's not that many customers. He came into the department and he showed a picture to 2 of the colleagues, and they freaked out when they saw the picture. They completely freaked out. Now I'm observing from the distance. I'm not interested in going and look what's on the picture. I'm just observing him, knowing he's something else. And afterwards, I asked them, I say, what's on the picture? And he says, oh, horrible, cut up limbs and people. So he was feeding on their energy when they were freaking out.
The
So
fear, yeah.
we're dealing with, in my field, reptilian or some not benevolent energy. Also, my dog had a golden retriever at the time. There was another person in the store with the same kind of vibe. And my golden retriever, just the friendliest dog in the world, would want to be friends with everybody. When he encountered that person, his front paws goes like this, and he non-stop barked like, you stay away. So my dog kind of helped me recognizing certain energies as well.
Yeah, I've actually heard about a few of these circumstances where dogs are looking at things in the roof and the ceiling of the house. And no, my sister being one of them, actually. And she called me and said, yeah, the dog's still staring at the roof and the ceiling. There's nothing there. And he's growling and yapping about this being. And I suspect animals probably have a different type of vibration and see different things than we don't. So yeah, that's quite interesting. It's amazing how those animals pick up those things, the scent of that and the feeling of that. Anyways, I got a black lab that the last one we had, I had 2 of them in a row, one that called Pure Love, and then this one's called Jet. And the 2 kids could take the dog by the ears and pull it out, and the dog would just stand there and do nothing, right? But every once in a while he has these issues where he growls or goes almost crazy, and you wonder, what is that all about? Like, he's so calm and cool and beautiful most of the time. But anyways, I don't know the connection, but
Now, talking about animals, I had some psychic abilities with animals too, that even with people, when they die, they come to me with messages. It's mostly, I'm not asleep, I'm in this in-between state. So I had my grandmother showing up, sharing stuff with me, and a dog who died, who was on the 4th of July, ran away. We didn't know where he was. We looked for him, couldn't find him. So I connected with him before I went to sleep. Said, hey, give me a message. And he showed up and showed me he was hanging on a thread. And then the next day, somebody told me he was found on the street.
road, yeah.
So he connected with me to tell me what he was doing. He was leaving. So things like that. So in animals, or another dog we had, Love, also the name Love.
Love, which is, yeah, cracked me up.
Incredible dog. Anyway, she was a Belgian Malinois, and she appeared in my sleep. She penetrated my consciousness, and I see her next to the bed looking at me like in my dream. I mean, in my he looks like me like that. So she was pushing me awake in my consciousness. So I wake up, I look at her, and she's sitting there exactly as she projected herself in my mind. And I knew she wanted to go out and she wanted to get my attention, but I was asleep. So things like that.
Yeah. Very interesting. So also you guys had mentioned earlier that you've written a book. Can you tell us a little bit about it and what's the name of it and where people can actually get it?
I'll show you here. So it's titled My Life is a Mystery. And that's that actually helped us putting it together, because of her that it got published. I mean, I wrote it, but she helped us. Yeah, we put it on, she helped us putting it on Amazon. So it's our life story. So it's
Part one.
Yeah, we're working on more, but it's kind of who we are and our unique experiences. Also, all the synchronicities, how we came together, and all the parts that are pretty mystical. Then the experiences, I remember flying a craft, UFOs, you know, all our UFO experiences. Paul shares 4 experiences. It's just what we lived. And with the intention to say, hey, this is just what we lived. That's our story. If we can share, hopefully we can motivate other people to share their stories.
Or at least not feel unusual.
Yeah, or at least not feel alone with your experiences. So that's why we wrote that.
So I put into the chat here where you can buy that book, just so if people want to do that, they can copy and paste that into into their own computer, so they can look at it later or get it right now if they so choose.
I see your questions. Thanks for the questions. I didn't look at the chat till now. Go ahead.
Yeah, there are. You know what? I don't have my glasses on right now. I'm wondering if we just take a quick look through theirs and see what we've got.
I will read them. Were the ETs either of you encountered benevolent or malevolent? Very good question. I'm just going to read all the questions quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Paul, were your legs broken, upper or lower parts? And then, do you think Paul actually disappeared and became invisible?
That wasn't next. So I wasn't the one that disappeared. That was your boss at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
So don't shop at Whole Foods, is what you're saying?
Watch your basket for stuff disappearing.
Or appearing. I'm one of the most interesting people I've ever met, and had many hours of conversation with, who described to me flying craft through using her mind. And so, Mieke, if you could just describe your experience of flying a craft and how you did it. How obviously was a craft made for you? Tell us a little bit about it.
So I recall two encounters where I was flying a craft. The first one was my own. It was a smaller craft. I was completely flying it myself. It was kind of my own design, I think. And the purpose for my flying at the time was to transport metals. And it was like a routine thing I was doing. You know, like you go to the store, just get stuff. So that was part of my job, back and forth to Earth, transporting metals. I was the only one in the craft. I recall I was going to the beach. There was a little boy there that I now recognize, I think somebody in my life now. A little boy was just sitting on the beach, and I thought, oh, let me ask if he wants to come with me. I don't know. It's like I would ask you, hey, Mark, you want to go with me to the store? I'm going to get some apples or something. And you say yes or no. It was kind of like that. They say, hey, I'm going to go transfer to Earth, get some metals or transfer metal. Do you want to come with me or not? So he stops playing. He looks at me and he said, sure. So that's the recall I have. So I just flew it. I don't recall using any, it was by intent at that time. It was just, okay, you're going there, you just put the intention and you go. That was the feel I had about flying that one.
Wow.
The second one was a larger craft. It was not by myself. I had a colleague, and there was a whole bunch of panels. The window, the view, the window was all window above and in front of me. And I remember we're hanging in front of Jupiter, and Jupiter was tilted a little bit. And my job was to log my experiences and my observations, whatever I was observing from Jupiter. So we just logged it. And I remember the big panel in front of me, the big sky. It was incredible. The feeling of that was incredible, to be hanging there in this vast dark space with this giant planet in front of me in total silence. Really, it was incredible. And my colleague was there with me, so we were co-creating this together. We were both on the job, and we were just using the panels to log and navigate and all that. So that was total different experience than the other experience. Now,
go ahead.
Yeah, so the power of Jupiter to me was totally different than the power of the Earth, in which I had an Earth vision where I got to feel and see into the depths and the core of the Earth. And the power of the Earth was, in my personal perception and experience, way more powerful and way more potent and powerful than what I experienced observing Jupiter. So that was my experience, yeah.
Interesting. So typically you read out the questions, and I didn't get into what are the answers to your questions. Hopefully we have Laura who puts our videos together. She can glue this back together. But so were either of the ETs that you two have come across benevolent or malevolent? Maybe we can start with Paul.
My experience, Mark, is that they were very benevolent. And let me share the experience, and you'll understand why. And I ended up changing careers based on this experience. I was a young practicing dentist in Hood River, small town in Oregon. And one day I had just a horrendous headache, and I don't get headaches, so this was unusual. So I sent my staff home, closed up the office, locked it all up, and I lay down in my dental chair to see if maybe I could get some sleep or something, so that I could then be able to drive the short distance to my home. And so I lay down in my dental chair, and the next thing I remember, there's two beings in my operatory with me. The lights are out. The only light is coming from a window out to the street, and there's two beings in my operatory with me, standing behind my dental chair. And I'm going, what are you doing here? It was shocking. Two reasons. One is that the office was completely locked, and two, that they were in there. And they said, we noticed you have a headache. And that caught my attention. You got in here, how? And you noticed what? So yes, I had a horrible headache. I said, yeah, I have an incredible headache, and I don't usually get headaches. Well, they pull out an item, Mark, that was about maybe 18 inches long. So I don't know if I could say that, about that long, and 1.5 inches or so in diameter. And I can see this out of the corner of my eye. And they wave this thing over my head from behind me. And they say, well, the reason you have a headache is because you have a brain tumor. And I went from shit, my total panic, or not panic. I wasn't the funny thing about it, I was not in any fear from these beings. I was just in complete wonder, but I didn't feel fear. And anyway, so they said, well, you have a brain tumor. Now that put me in fear. And it's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, they said, not to worry. And I'm not sure that they were speaking to me in English. That's how I received it. And it could be very much telepathic. Pretty sure it was. So they did something to this device, and they wave it back over my head again. And in about 30 seconds, the pain disappears. And they says, there, it's gone. Well, I'm super excited. Now I said, like, what is that? And where can I get one? And they said, well, this is one of our devices and we'll send you one. And I'm like, whoa, this is incredible. Because I'm just thinking, being in the medical field, if you can, wave a wand over somebody and cure a tumor or even just a headache would be good enough. I said, well, what, can I get one? Well, we'll send one to you. I said, okay, well, I'm thinking, well, maybe you live in Omaha, I'm in Hood River, but I can meet you halfway, because I was really excited about this. And they point straight up when I asked them where they lived. So it was pretty apparent to me that they were not on planet.
Can you describe what those beings look like?
I can't, Mark. All I could see
They're
was
just behind you.
they were behind me. They were not in light. They were taller than the dental chair, that I can tell you. But that's it. And so it's not a whole lot of information to go. I don't know what kind of beings they were, other than when they pointed straight up, I realized that they weren't local. So,
It's kind of unusual here. So your hand just rose on your screen.
Oh, yeah.
People have questions. They usually their hand raises like this. You're the only hand that's raised. And when you started talking about, you didn't see him, it came up on the screen as your hand came up with, which was kind of neat.
I didn't notice it until you said something about it. I said, well, the hand's up, but I didn't raise my hand.
Yeah, I noticed you didn't go towards your computer either, and it just sort of popped up on the screen. I've never seen that before, by the way. So that's really something.
Welcome to our reality, Mark.
Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. It's nice to see it, actually. Nice to hear all about it. Mieke, do you have any, what's your experience? Malevolent, benevolent?
I say both
or whatever.
Yeah, both of them. So
just before you start, my dog I'm not sure if you can hear him whining. He's looking at me. I'm just gonna let him out. Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
sure. Go ahead.
Go ahead and you can speak about it. Well, I can still hear you, but.
Let's see here. I'm gonna read here a question. We'll do all the questions, but the last one I see here. Are you aware of the portal wars going on in between Jupiter and Saturn? I've been to the portal regions with my crew. We had to stop the Trish tray from entering the Earth's solar system. They were headed for Mars and the moon. We wiped them out. There's a standing portal there, which is linked to the one over Catalina Island, California. I am not aware of it consciously. So I might be on levels I'm working there, but at this personality, Mieke, I'm not aware of that, no.
Okay. So in your experience, Mieke, just so
right.
Benevolent, malevolent, what are your thoughts?
Both. I feel I have both of them. The abduction experiences, I'm not sure what they are, are they military base projects? Are they ET? I am not clear on that. I just remember what I remembered from what I experienced. Now, when I was in my 20s, I had an experience that I was laying. That was when, at the time, I decided to be by myself, right? So I'm in my house by myself and laying on my stomach. And all of a sudden, I have two beings next to me, but I'm on my stomach. And I feel they are measuring my back in exactly 3 parts. I just know. I think they told me what they were doing, because I know they were measuring exact 3 parts. Then they go to the beginning of the part, and like with a needle or something, they stick in a point, and I just go like, just screaming from pain. It was extremely uncomfortable. So I'm just grapple, trying to get my what's going on here. And then they go to the second part, and again, I just scream.
It's because they stabbed it in again now.
Yeah, they stabbed that thing in there again on that second part, and then do it again at the third part. And by that time, I was like, that's enough. I'm not going to take any more of this crap. And I try do the best I can to turn myself around, and everything is gone. So that was the time I was doing the alternative healing. So that night we had class, and our teacher that went with us to Brighton Bush, Oregon, she's a doctor, she's a homeopath, she's a visionary, she's so good, and she's at that time full booked like 9 months ahead, so you can't get in for an appointment. So I go to the class and I tell her, I said, "Also, I have to tell you what my experience was." And I tell her, just like I told you. And she asks me, "Well, what do you think? Do you think they're benevolent or malevolent?" And I just stop for a second and I'm like, well, they were definitely on a purpose. They are on a mission. They were doing something. They were not there to cause me pain of harm. I didn't have that feeling. They were doing something with a reason. I said, "I don't think they're malevolent." And she says, "Well," oh, is that Mark? Oh, no, he's.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I said, she says, "Well, what I see and feel, they have no idea what it is to be in a human body with a nervous system and feeling pain, and the bodies you have that are so sensitive, they're working from their dimension. They don't feel what you feel," she says. She says, "If I was you, I would tell him." And that completely made sense to me. I mean, they're doing what they're doing. We are in these, very sensitive bodies. I said, "Okay, that makes sense." So I went home and sit on my couch and I'm like, "Okay, guys," in my head saying, I said, "Okay, guys," or even loud. "I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're doing. Obviously, I feel we're in kind of a co-creation here. If I'm working with you, you have no idea what it is to be in this human body. That was very painful, very uncomfortable. If we're working together and you want me to work together in the future with you, you're going to have to find different ways to work with me that does not cause me pain, or I am not willing to participate in any of these projects anymore." I said that. And then I never experienced any painful experiences after that. So it learned me at age, how old was that? 27, 27. I learned at that time how powerful as human beings we are. We are not less than the ETs. We somehow work together. We each have our role and place to play, and we have a say. And for me, that was a very powerful consciousness growth experiences for me. So I think they were malevolent, those. They were on a mission. Somehow I'm part of whatever we're doing. And so
benevolent or malevolent?
Benevolent. I felt those were benevolent and they were willing to work with me, and then we're probably still working together, but in a way that does not cause me more discomfort or harm. So I feel I have both malevolent and benevolent.
Good. Just I see that somebody has put on here, and did they ever, this is to Paul, did they ever make good on giving the headache remover device to you?
Well, yes and no. I kept looking for it. Who is this? Anyway,
Work iPhone.
Work iPhone. Okay, so I kept checking the mail. I kept checking UPS and FedEx for years because that experience was so powerful. I ended up changing careers. I went into medical applications of computers at that point. I went to San Francisco and took computer programming and operations, and went off in that path and started working with medical applications of computers and doing consulting and different things in that arena. So yes, it definitely impacted me. I do believe that those devices, actually, this is what we call now that medbed technology. It is on the planet. It's probably been here at least since the 80s, maybe before. And it's been in the hands of people that didn't want to share with the population. But it is now coming into a situation where we will have access to that. So if that's an answer to your question, so that I didn't get the actual wand yet, but it's on its way, but it's even more powerful in like in the medbed technology.
Yeah, we had one of the guests that actually is building those beds. So it was I met him at the near-death experiences conference. It was quite remarkable to listen to him. And
wow. See, yeah. So that's my belief. And do I have have I actually seen one in physical myself? Not yet.
Back to, as you can see, Mark Olson likes to jump around on the questions and stuff like that, but we're going to go with it at this point. So when you start talking benevolent or malevolent, I guess the issue is, when we think of walking along and stepping on an ant, doing things. We don't consider that to be mean or cruel to anything or anybody. We don't even think about it. It's not even part of us. So maybe they just have a different construct or different dimensional thinking that we might think is malevolent, and they don't even think about it. So when I think about, I had one time someone explained to me, think about this as human beings compared to ETs. Said, you're an ant, you live on an anthill, and there's 2 miles from you is a car on a highway traveling at 100 kilometers an hour or 65 miles an hour. And there's a reptilian driving it. And then 20 miles above the earth, there's an airplane or craft flying overhead, and you're in this anthill still. So you just have different concepts of what we have. So maybe we just have a different idea of malevolent, benevolent from what we think is right or wrong or part of this earth. So I think it is kind of neat when you think about it's put, and then maybe it's on Mars, there's some living beings on Mars, from the anthill to the Mars is, quite a ways. That's all. Our understandings maybe are just focused on us and the way we think. And that wasn't even that long ago where we thought we were the only living beings in the universe. So I think most of the people on this call or this program know that that's not true. So we're surrounded with, and these ETs may have been with us for a very long time. Not just, they may have created us for that matter, even for that matter. So anyways, so where are we at here? So your story, going back to your stories. And I see people coming in and out of the chat here, so or out of the show.
So I want to share one more experience that was fascinating. It shows how we are linked really with the craft. So I was working in the bakery early morning. I had to go to work like 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock something. It was just like breaking light. And I'm driving an old Lincoln that we got from Paul's mom with, huge visibility, big windows, big car. So I'm driving towards passing the schools. It was pretty outside of town. So I'm driving. All of a sudden, my head, I was not going to turn my head. It was not me doing this consciously. My head turns by itself to the left. At the same time, my eyes witness a spacecraft doing the zigzag thing. So I see this big metal disc appear like a nice, beautiful UFO metal disc, and I see it going zip, 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 poof, and disappearing. And then by itself, my head turns back to the front, and I recall saying, what was that all about? Because I was not consciously moving my own head. It was like this interaction with the UFO. So my question has been like, what was that all about? So maybe, maybe I was in the night on the craft, waking up, going to work, and it was like,
See you later.
a little reminder like, hello, bye-bye, something like that.
I got to stop you. So as you were doing that, your hand on your screen was going up and down, up and down. I'm talking the yellow one. The notice was doing it on the top left-hand corner as you were doing it. And when you raised your hand, the hand went off. That was already set on the top of the picture. So obviously there's some other beings at play here. Well, we'd like to welcome them to the show. And if they want to say anything, they should actually come forward and say it. We'd like to hear what they have to say as well.
Mark will let you in.
Yeah, that's right. Here, there's somebody coming right in right now. As a matter of fact, isn't that funny?
Oh.
Fascinating.
So that was
it is.
Story. Now,
I mean, this is so, I've been doing this for over a dozen years, and I never had anyone's hand thing pop up and go down, pop up and go down. So that's a first. So if that isn't a sign of another being, another dimensional, just having fun with us, I don't know. But
that's a great one.
So
Yeah,
let me
that's
go
pretty
to some
good.
of these questions here from the beginning that we kind of didn't see. How
Okay.
many times were you taken? So I recall from 2.5 years old, and it happened. So I don't have proof of any of that, but I would say like every 2 years or something. That's my recall. I mean, after being older and looking back at it. So it happened more frequently when I was younger, and then less after in my mid-teens that I remember. And then it still sometimes happens, but in a whole different way. And it's kind of like more connected to out-of-body experiences or something. I mean, there's signs and they're like, I recognize patterns, let's put it that way. After a while, you start recognizing patterns of experiences. So how many times have you been taken? I'm for sure know about 7 times or something. As a kid, and then,
When was the last time that you had some connection with ETs?
Good question.
Yeah. When my last recall was, and it's not that long ago really, that because a lot of actually I haven't been screaming lately that much. There's years that I just wake up screaming, and then Paul is like, I haven't had it lately yet.
No, you
Great to realize. But one of the last times, and then Paul is aware, and then he comes to the room because, or if we're in bed, he's like, okay, you're okay, you're okay. The last time I remember, I recall, and it comes with a sound, a buzzing sound, and it's kind of like I'm moving through dimensions, and sometimes you have to go through the astral. So sometimes I encounter darker energies. You just have to penetrate through, and that's my experience. So it depends probably on the frequency that I go to bed with. If I'm negative or tired, what I encounter when I leave my body is probably different than when I am, more upbeat. But I do remember the last time that I recount the patterns of when I've been taken with the sound and the rushing. And that was the last time that I screamed and you immediately came to the room. Or sometimes you didn't come and I hear you in the kitchen, but I can't talk because I'm paralyzed. I'm in that state in between. But the biggest recall of ETs was more in my earlier and teenage years and 20-year years of really interfaced visuals. I also believe that many of us, maybe all of us, have experiences, but if there is no purpose in this lifetime to do something with it, you're not going to remember. So people say, why you? Well, I think because I was giving memories to do something with it, like just sharing with you now. Yeah. But like, I think we're all ETs in a way. We're all connected interdimensional beings. We all have our other parts of us that are doing other things at this time in this same moment right now. But if there's no reason in your lifetime now that's of purpose for you to remember, I mean, why would you? So that's how I see that.
I see. You believe in bilocation?
Yep, I have those experiences. Fascinating. I wrote this in the book too. Out-of-body experiences where I was here and I'm from Belgium. So where I recall being in Belgium at the same time, smelling, meeting people. I even saw somebody on the street that I have not even recalled since I was a kid. I've never encountered her again till that bilocation. And I'm like, wow. And I'm right there and I smell the streets of Belgium. I'm on the cobblestones and I feel it under my feet while I am here. So
wow.
it's I love those experiences. It's beyond my normal Mieke day-to-day life type thing,
Paul, what's your last recollection of a connection with ETs or having that kind of, or an experience maybe let's leave it as simple as that.
Well, last time that I really recall is that experience in the dental office, which I changed careers. I do believe that I have connected with them since then, but it's very vague. And
Yeah.
it's like I wake up and I'm really, really tired. A good night's sleep, and I wake up and I have this vague memory of working somewhere, but I don't know where it is, and I don't know the situation other than that, waking up, exhausted.
Now, Paul has an ability he can tap into. I'm way more mental for me to just drop into this open space, and I have to kind of almost be in front of my sleeping state to connect with them. Paul can just quiet his mind and he can communicate, beings coming in, he can ask a question and he gets the answers, and he's so in tune right now in this body that, I mean, it's one of his beautiful abilities he has.
We
Wow.
can, I can actually recall people, if a name comes up, Mark, particularly somebody that's just passed recently or with not too long, and they'll show up, and they show up to me on my left side as a tingling sensation, which tells me they're there. And the feeling will either be it's usually a very good feeling. I think they're probably in a great place because it comes in as a very warm and nice feeling, but it's tingly over here. And I get maybe a little bit of a message, but not with words. It's in the feeling realm, not in the words. So that happens kind of on a regular basis, not like every day, but every week or every month. Some of that will happen.
Interesting. I'm just trying to look through the questions again and see where we're at with the.
Paul, were your legs broken, upper or lower parts?
Okay, so the accident, it's called a dashboard injury, which is where the legs are forced underneath the dashboard, and the femur is driven into the top of the tibia, and it makes a mess out of the tibial plateau. So they have to rebuild the tibia plateau, and that's been on both legs. So we call that lower leg is probably what's deal. I spent 3 months where I couldn't put either foot on the ground. And before that, I was a massage therapist and runner, not runner, jogger, how to put it, that wasn't a
And
runner.
Tai Chi teacher.
And Tai Chi teacher. And so I had pretty good body awareness and activity. And after that accident, I couldn't walk. Like I said, I couldn't touch the ground for 3 months. And I thought, well, I'm just going to, as soon as I get out of this wheelchair, I'm going to be up and running. Well, no, I had to learn how to walk again. So, and that I'm still in that process. And this is what, 10 years, 12 years later. So I'm
Wow.
still not 100% back. So I hope that
Sorry to hear
answers the
that.
question. Yeah.
I'm going to go off. I'm going to go off directions here just for a second because I'm getting a sense here. So I said to you, if this being wants to come in and talk to us, and then Dean iPhone came in. Dean, are you an ET here to talk to us, or am I just sensing something different? So, Dean, just to let you know what just happened. Earlier, they were having the hand, when you raise a hand in a discussion on a Zoom call, it popped open and she was talking about raising her hand and up came the symbol on the screen and they weren't on their computers. And then I said, well, it sounds like an ET, but excuse me.
Sir, you're not talking about me. My name is Dean. You're not talking about me?
Yeah, I am talking about you, Dean.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I know, just to give you an idea. So I said, if you're an ET and you're just playing with us right now, do you want to talk to us? Come on in. And by that chance, you came up on my screen that you just were entering this. So I put you up here. So I was saying, okay, maybe Dean's an ET. So I thought we'll hear from Dean. But anyways, I understand you're just here to listen to the program, probably.
No, I'm just weird. I don't know about the ET part.
We're all there. Don't worry about that. Anyways, okay. Sorry for bothering you, Dean.
Okay.
Anyways, back to us. And so you're talking about have you gone around to the other conferences and stuff like that? Have you spoke at any of these other types of things? And what other things are you doing to help people sort of become more accustomed to their experiences and to try to get through it? That maybe even you could provide some advice to people who are watching this program right now and on YouTube as well.
So we've been to some conferences, which are called the what's the name of it?
Startworks USA from Paula Harris. We've been to those mainly to meet people and feel them. That's kind of why we go to these conferences, to kind of say, okay, how are these people, you know, just to connect and
They
do
have,
that.
and they have experiencer rooms in hers, in Paula's conferences, where they say, anyone that has had contact experiences, go to this room this time and share your experiences with each other.
Yeah.
So we've done that a couple of times. Right now, we're in a group called Connecting Consciousness, which is a worldwide group of, I don't know, 120,000 people or whatever. And they're doing experiencer work also. I mean, they're starting to look at that and to, again, give a forum for people to share their experiences.
Right. And when we put the book out, people just organically contact us, you know, to do an interview here, or we meet people on the street and start sharing. I mean, we don't really putting ourselves out much. It just happens. People ask, we share. You could feel if people are open or not on a daily basis on the streets. And it's fascinating. We're in this time frame where everything's going to come out, especially from the experiencers. It's very important. I'm telling, it's very important. Doesn't matter, doesn't has to be ET experience. It could be a psychic experiences and intuitive experiences. We're telling people, share your story. And I just say, how do you do that? I said, start with a timeline. I say, make a timeline. You're born that time, that year. We're here now, 2024, and start filling it in, you know. I'm married then, and you start see what experiences you had.
Yes.
And go from there. Everybody has their own timeline. So we want to encourage people to validate your own experience and not compare yourselves like, oh, look at those, they have all these experiences, I must be less. No. Everybody's experience is as valuable. The question is, do you have a safe space to express it to others? And we created, by coming together, a safe space for each other, and we want to provide to for other people a safe space.
Safe space where they can, yeah.
You know, to feel heard, to feel they have a platform to speak, to be not non-judgmental, listened to, because some experiences are so weird that our minds can't even grasp. But that does not mean they didn't exist, because we, you know, some people can't grasp it. We're talking here about multidimensional reality. So to support each other, to share non-judgmentally, I think that's what gives me joy, really.
This story has been suppressed for so long, Mark. I mean, particularly the ET story, since at least the 30s, 40s. It's time, you know, we're being visited. There's no doubt about it in my mind. And it's been suppressed. We don't supposed to talk about it. But the more we talk about it, the more people show up that have had experiences, and it makes it much more real. And we're not alone. And if we have a place like what you're providing, Mark, here, for people to talk and share their experiences, or at least hear other experiences, and then they can relate to their own. And maybe I had that experience and maybe I didn't.
Right.
Wonderful. You know, this is what has to come out.
I also think we're moving into a time frame where fear will not be supportive anymore. So the more we can help each other by expressing and get rid of those, what they call weird things, the more we can find peace in ourselves, the more and easier we will have contact with them too, because they're not living in a fear-based reality. And if we lower our level of fear, the gap will come together. But we need to first work on our own fear-based beliefs that have been installed in us. So the more we help each other to move beyond fear, the faster our connection with the ET world will be there, because they're not operating in fear. I mean, I'm not saying there are realities and races that are introducing fear, but I think raising our frequency will connect us faster with the other races. That's my personal, you know, belief or vision on this. No, you're muted, Mark.
muted. I wasn't muted before, so I don't know what happened. That was kind of funny. That there's the creator talking to me about, Olson, you're better on mute than anything else. So,
All right.
so yeah, we were talking. You mentioned earlier also that oneness, that we're all connected in some incredible way. I'm a huge believer in that as well, and I think there's a lot of people that share that sort of train of thought in this genre, this oneness. What an interesting world that we live in. From we just discovering this a few years ago. And I'll mention one of my experiences to you earlier. I'll tell you another one which is quite unique. Matter of fact, it was right outside this window right here that I'm sitting beside. I was downstairs reading a book, and my wife was sitting upstairs up here. And I look out, and there's a light. It's nighttime, and a light shining over. I live on the river, Assiniboine River here in Winnipeg, and there's a light shining over the river. So I look out the window, and it's a orb, a giant orb, 20 feet wide orb, and it looks like gasoline on water churning like this. And I was like, wow. And I started yelling at my wife upstairs saying, look out the back. And I come running up the stairs, ran by this spot I'm in, and I was standing side by side on the back deck here overlooking, and I was looking at this orb, this 20-foot ball of gas or whatever this was, churning right in front of me. My wife was right beside me. We watched for maybe 20, 30 seconds. And I never have a phone with me when I see one of these things. So I said, I'm going to run back in the house and get my phone and take a picture of this. It'll only take me a minute. So I ran in, came out, and she said it just disappeared right in front of her eyes, the thing. And they were about 70 feet away. Anyways, a few years later, somebody was coming up to me and said, hey, I hear you run our UFO group. I said, yeah, I do. And I said, I've had some experience. And then I told him the same thing. I said, I've had some experience myself. And I started going through them. My wife was beside me. And I got onto this issue where I said, yeah, we're standing beside each other and we're looking at this orb. And I said, it's like gasoline on water. And she turns to me and says, no, it wasn't. It was a metallic craft. And I'm going, so we're 70 feet away from this object, looking side by side at this object, and we both saw something different, which I really thought was quite interesting. But I see that the Sustainable Stillwaters has got his hand up and he wants to ask a question. Come on in.
Thank you. I saw that exact thing about 2 weeks ago where I live. We get about a UFO sighting about maybe twice a week. I'm like way off grid outside of Ash Fork, where the Anasazi Indians used to live. And I saw this like point of light, and it had this mist like a spiral going around it, and it hovered all the way until it got right over our heads, and then it just disappeared. It didn't take off. It just like vanished. So I don't know if that's something that is more recent that's happening right now. I've seen a lot of different types of ships, but it was the first time I saw a point of light create a spiral and have it like holographically just like hover right in front of you, no sound, and disappear. So
Thanks
I can
for
really,
sharing that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're having a lot of people seeing things in the sky. Before the show, I was mentioning to Paul and Mickey that my sister had saw a fireball in the sky in Phoenix, Arizona last week. So and took some video of it. So iPhone number 3, and I bet you that's Susan. Susan, unmute yourself and you can ask a question.
What time does public close, huh?
Susan, are you there? You're muted at this point.
Okay, hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, a lot of her experiences that would coincide with mine. But now when she said she flies the ships, I also, well, of course, you already know me. I already fly any type of craft there is. You see it, I fly it. Well, anyway, I heard somewhere from her name was Crystal Choba, from the Starseed and Light Workers group, and she said that the reason a lot of people are being trained how to fly the ships now and stuff is because there's going to be a mass exodus off the planet, and they're going to be acting like shuttlecraft to carry people to the colony ships and the mega ships on the outer part of the solar system.
Wow. Well, I'm not sure what I believe in anymore. There's so many different takes on things, but I don't know. Paul and Mieke, do you have any comments on that?
I think more and more, if people share things like that, the truth will come out. So I trust that the more people share, and more things will come out. And you know, it will take time, I think.
And Mark, I've got one other thing that, and Mark, Mieke and I have both experienced this, and this is we look at a star, but the star is not just one light. It's like this one main light and then 3 colored lights with it. And there'll be typically 2 or 3 of them in the sky, and you look around at the different stars, and most stars will just look like stars, and then there'll be a few of these tricolored, whatever they are. I just saw a couple nights ago. So if you talk about current contact, I don't know that that's it. We took this up to Isetti Ranch and told him about it, and he said there's other people.
Well,
we experienced it while we were there. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
So yeah, I was there, and we were just looking at the sky. Isetti with James Gilliland in Washington. And we're just looking at the sky, and they were pointing, and all, you know, you saw things moving and ships and all that. And I see this color thing right in front of us. So I assume everybody else sees it because it's right there. I mean, right in our vision, a little bit on the left of the field, but it was very strong and very bright. And they were talking and pointing, so I didn't want to interrupt, and you know, because everybody was exploring what they were seeing. But that thing was hanging there. And I wasn't able to get into, I was planning to ask James to see what he thought about the lights over there, but I hadn't a chance. So the next morning I say, hey, James, you know about the lights there, the colored lights. And he says, I didn't see any colored lights. I said, what? I mean, it was so obvious. It was right there in front of me. He says, oh, they must have been just for you because I didn't see them. And then I'm like, oh, okay. They might just appear in our vision. We saw them in Mexico, in California. We've seen them several. We check once in a while, and we say, "Oh, there they are."
There's one there.
But obviously, it's not because we see them that everybody else sees them too.
Yeah, you probably vibrated a different dimension, you know, different vibration field.
Kind of like you and your wife, Mark, seeing the same thing in complete different interpretation, I guess is what I would have to say.
Yeah, what happens to me, like, it was September 1994. I was walking the street, and I was on 88th Court, and something told me to stop. So I stopped, and I just stood there. And sure enough, it was a black rectangular object, and it was only 30 feet above my head, only as high as the power lines. And nobody else saw. Joggers went by, 2 bicyclists went by. And so I just looked at them. They were checking me out, and I was checking them.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's amazing.
So what they worked on stuff.
Yeah.
I see here in the chat, I purchased a book on cornets worldwide. That's from, who said that? Bruce.
Bruce, yeah.
I was surprised the most cornets are listed in Belgium. Mieke, do you know any cornets from Belgium? Hey, Bruce, can you tell me what a cornet is? I don't know what that is.
Cornet is my last name.
Oh, wait a minute.
Purchased a book on cornets worldwide. Oh. Most of the cornets.
Interesting, interesting. I do not know. I don't recognize the name. No.
Interesting.
No. Well, nice to meet you, Bruce.
Well, thank you very much, Mieke.
Let me see if there's more questions that I don't want to lose any person's questions. Okay, so I got that, Bruce, the link, so we'll look that up later. How about those drones all over the planet? I think they're us showing our presence in mass.
Drones.
Yeah, drones. Yep, I have no idea.
I agree, Sue.
Yeah, those drones are us, and we're responding to the threat that was escalating between Putin and the U.S. because the U.S. and their infinite ignorance decides to supply long-range missiles to the Ukraine along with some of the other NATO nations so that they can hit targets within the USSR, and that was really stupid of them. They're doing it's the evil elite, and they're deliberately trying to do anything they can to create World War III because they know they're going down. They're losing control over the human race. As soon as they do, they're going to be on somebody's dinner plate of the negative ET tall whites and the Pleiadians. And so they figure if they're going to go down, they're going to take the human race down with them.
They're going to need a lot of hot sauce.
That's good. All right.
I think we went
Very
through
good.
the questions in the chat. I don't, if I missed one, please speak up because I think we went through them.
I think
Also,
you've got it.
also
ahead.
for drones, the Pleiadians were having scout ships over Washington, D.C. and most of the ruling class around the world for about 4 days. And it's a point of light with 3 lights around it, which is just a scout ship. It's only a 2-person craft, which comes, checks a frequency of an area out, and then they take off. But some of them are drones that are American, but not all of them.
Interesting.
There's about 20 different sources that have verified it on the net so far.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay, my question is, how do you know which Pleiadians are benevolent and which ones are the evil bastards that ran off the Orions and the other alien colonists before they put the Homo sapiens on this planet?
Well, they do have the galactic fleet around our Earth right now, so anything coming and going would definitely be moderated. So I don't think it's going to happen at this point.
Well, I think the galactic fleet involves us, and we're a secret force that came in from another universe. And also, I wanted to discuss the fact that there is an 18-minute video on YouTube, and the title of the video is called "Government Worker Stumbles Upon Secret Meeting," and it talks about a 4-hour video cassette tape. And that's a warning. In 2027, the custodians decide they're going to come back to this earth and harvest the humans for nourishment. And they've come down here several thousand times before in the past. And they're the ones who created all the religions and everything else to subjugate and usurp the humans. Because if they can control this planet, they can control the Orion Stargate portal sector. They can control the baseline harmonic matrix that regulates the very nature of physical reality, and they can sap the life force out of this universe. I'm as you can tell, I'm working with the warrior fleet, but we're benevolent creator being warriors. We're here to defend this planet.
Thank you, Susan. Rolf, you got your hand up. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, just on the news right now, FBI official tells House panel the agency does not know who is flying mysterious drones over New Jersey. I'm just wondering whether swamp gas has now turned into drones.
See, we're a humorous group too, by the way, Paul.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's yes, it's a transformation that we're still trying to figure out. So yeah,
There's a lot to be learned.
yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So anyways, what's next for you two? Are you looking at doing any more of the circuit? Are you attending any of the conferences?
We're not doing any conferences right now. We feel I mean, I feel at this moment what we got when we went through, now it's more sharing our personal stories. We're writing more of our experiences down as we evolve. So we're writing, we are connecting with other people. We are pretty active in the Connecting Consciousness group as volunteers too. And we gather with people and we share and everybody expresses their experiences. What else? And we are very excited for what's to come in the next few years.
Very optimistic, Mark, about what we see coming as an expression of humanity in its best, and that suppression of anything that is malevolent on our planet. So that's what we're seeing. And again, we have the only thing we have is our personal experiences, people that we've talked to, and information that we've gathered. So
I have to agree with you 100%. I am a complete optimist. I feel that we're making a turn right now, and I think of heaven on earth is how I'd like to describe it. But we're at such an incredible junction in humanity's existence. I think we're headed to something very, very special. And I do believe we've been held back, or I'm familiar with technologies that have been taken away or not withheld from humanity, which I'm hoping are going to come forward. A lot of 0-point energy devices and that sort of thing. Med beds, which we've talked a bit about on this thing, the show tonight. So it's exciting to think and to put ourselves in that position. And I believe our thoughts are incredibly powerful as well. So we got to stay on the positive note, and let's look forward to an incredible future together.
That's it.
I concur completely with you, Mark. I think that's where we are, where we're going, and I'm thrilled to be here at this time, be alive, and be able to experience it.
Well, we've absolutely loved. You have maybe we should just sort of wind things up. Just wondering how, if you have some last words or things you want to share with us prior to us finishing this night off.
I just want to thank everybody for being here and for everything that's been shared and questioned. And we're co-creating this together. We're all part of that. And there's nobody lesser than or better than. We are, as we speak, as we come together, we're all contributing to the good of all. So I want to thank everyone.
Yeah, and may everyone's journey continue in the most benevolent way and supported by each other and from all sources that we can call on.
Well, Mieke and Paul, I have to say thank you very much. And our group will have a chance to say thank you as well. But for you to step in tonight when we really needed somebody to come in, and your story is fantastic. I love the connection. I love the vibe that comes, the energy from both of you. And it is a true love story in so many different ways, which I think is miraculous, and how it's all come together in so many similarities, connections. Quite your hand thing bumping up on the screen. It's just like, wow, it's great. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart that you've come on, and hopefully we can have you again in the future as let's say you start a new book or you come out and do something that you want to share with us. We're happy to have you.
Well, we're on the list, and we're planning to. We've been here before in the group, and when that stuff comes on, we probably will be there. So we're not just. We're right there with you.
And we would be honored to be back at any time that suits you. You've got most of our story for right now, at least a big chunk of it. Yes. So
yeah, is there anything you want to share that maybe I should have asked that first? And if there's any other part of your story that maybe we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, wow.
Well, I will quick share one. And the point while I'm sharing is that everything happens for a reason. And if certain weird things happen, it means, you think you have those exits point where you can die. But if you don't, there's a reason for it. And one example was when I was 11 years old, I was driving my bike. We had a bookstore. My grandparents started a bookstore, and my parents then took over. So the drive in Belgium, everything is so small together. I mean, you go with the bike everywhere. So from the house to the bookstore, I was 11 years old, and I had to pass this big, long 2 lanes and 2 lane street. And I had to go with my little bike to the middle, if it's safe to the first part, look what's coming from the other side, and then quick, go to the other side.
No light.
And no lights. And it was, So I'm going to the middle, and I see in the far distance a red car coming. I did not know, as an 11-year-old, it was a red sports car and it's going very fast. So I make my own judgment. I see the car way out there, and I'm, my logic says, oh, I'm good. So I start and jump on my bike and I start pedaling. And all of a sudden, the brakes on my bike just lock up. My bike stops. I almost flew over, and an inch in front of my nose, wing, I see this red blur passing.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I stop, and I realized what happened. I was supposed to be dead because I was driving my bike. I wasn't even paying attention to the car. And I think to myself, I'm curious, what thing in my future is so important or will be important that I'm not supposed to be dead right now? That's what I thought.
You thought that at that point?
Yeah.
As a
I thought-
11-year-old?
Yeah. I saw,
Wow.
I'm supposed to be dead. There must be something in my future that prevents me from being dead. And then I check my bike, and all was, normal. So I drove to the bookstore, just completely puzzled what happened. Now, a week later, on that same street, on the other side of the bridge, I was looking with my little bike, and I see a car that just an accident happened, and the blood was still on the street. And on the front windshield was long blonde hair, like I had, long blonde hair. And I was looking at that, and it was like a reminder of what just happened the week before. And I thought in myself, wow, that should have been me. Somebody else was unlucky. I wasn't, but this person is gone and I'm not. So
Wow.
I believe, and there's several times I was supposed to be dead that I was not. So I have no fear for dying. I do know that when your time is there, it will be there, and it will be for good reasons, because you will have been done what you came here to do.
I agree.
Wonderful. I can't imagine the idea of an 11-year-old thinking those thoughts, at that point in your life. That you're
Well,
living a very special life, Mieke.
Well, I've always, because of my abduction experiences, be so aware of everything. In my book, I wrote it too when I was 2.5 years old. It's kind of the last story I'm going to share. I was 2.5 years old, or 2 years old. In Belgium, you have to go very early to school. I think 2.5, about the time that my abduction experiences recalls happened. So my parents dropped me off for the first time at 2.5 at the school door, with the teacher. And when they saw I was distracted, they took off. So because of my abductions, I had to come up with strategies, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to survive, on my own. So at 2.5, I'm thinking, I'm left alone here. I don't see my parents. I have a problem here, So I went up to the teacher, and I asked the teacher, I don't recall that. They told me, my parents and teacher told me that. I don't recall that. But I went up to the teacher and asked, hey, do you have a car? And she laughs and she says, I have a car. She says, why do you ask? I say, well, could you please drive me home? So as 2.5 years old, I already rationalized, I'm left. They dropped me, the adults drove a car. So I need an adult to drive the car back. Who is an adult? There's the teacher. So I ask her if she has a car. So I'm already problem solving from that young age. And I think that comes from the abduction experiences, because I had to fend for myself. Anyway, that's, yeah.
You're here, and we're glad to have you.
We certainly are. And we look forward to seeing you again, even on our shows, like coming in and saying hi at the beginning of the shows and at the end of the shows.
Yeah, we'll listen to other people
Perfect, yes.
share their experiences. Yeah, excellent.
I'm gonna end the recording right now. But I'm more than happy